What's up world, this is Brad from Project Build Stuff, and today I'm going to show you how I completely renovated this laundry room and turned it into my new favorite room in the house. My current laundry room is so boring. Builder grade to the max is the only way I can describe it. Laminate flooring, old wire shelves, nothing that gets me excited. So let's get everything cleaned out of here and make this place look great. Whenever I tackle a new room renovation, I always like starting with a blank canvas, and this laundry room is no different. We got the shelf torn out and the washer and dryer moved out of the way, which left us with a big open space, which is perfect for getting these walls painted. I always love painting at the beginning of a project because I don't have to worry about getting paint on any of my hard work. This wall color is great. It's a nice bright white, which will be perfect in this laundry room, giving it a bright, airy feel. The next step is to tackle this floor. We're gonna get some beautiful tile put down. I got real lucky here that whoever built this house did not do a very good job at fixing this laminate flooring to the ground. All I had to do was cut the edge with a box cutter and it peeled right up. Easy peasy. I definitely dodged a bullet on this one. Because I'm going to be laying large format tile in this room, I need to make sure the floor is super flat. So I pulled out my level and checked all over, and I got super lucky. My floor was perfectly flat. I guess the builder did one thing right. We're also going to need to remove this transition strip between the flooring and the carpet. We're going to put in a new one when we start tiling, so this one's got to go. Because our tile is much thicker than the laminate I pulled out, we need to cut off a little bit from the bottom of the door jamb to accommodate for that height difference. I used the tile itself with a small block of wood as a spacer to cut out these door jambs with my multi-tool. With a clean slate to work from, let's move to tile. The first step to tiling is randomizing your tiles. You never want to grab a box of tile and just start tiling because you can create a pattern which will not look good. So here I'm randomizing all the tiles, grabbing them out of random boxes and making new stacks. It'll look so much better. Some of you might be brave enough just to dive in and start fixing tiles to the ground, but I am not, and I'm doing a dry fit of all the tiles first, and part of this gives me time to make sure all my cuts are perfect, just like this one where I'm measuring it out at the perfect distance. This also gave me time to run over to my friends at Home Depot and check out their rental center. This is a great option for all of us that don't own a tile saw to rent one for the day. They have tons of options. Because I'm using large format tiles, I had to rent the large one, but it still only cost me $70 to rent it for the full day, which gave me plenty of time to do all the cuts I needed. I went with an 8-inch or 33% offset on these tiles. It's recommended not to go with the typical 50% offset on these large format tiles as it can cause lippage and breaking. The final row of tiles was just a little wide, so I have to trim off this entire last row, which luckily the tile saw does a great job of. Just got all the dry fit done on the tile and it's looking great. All the tile went in perfectly and that tile saw left us with beautiful cuts. But of course, I messed up, dropped a tool, and did this. Broken tiles like this totally happen and it's not a big deal. This is why we buy extra stock, and I have plenty of extra tile to replace this one. And it gives me the perfect opportunity to show you guys how to cut tile using an angle grinder. If you don't have access to a tile saw or want to save yourself a few dollars, another option for cutting tile is using a diamond blade on an angle grinder. It takes a little longer and it's a little more messy, but it will work. The angle grinder is also an awesome option whenever you need to cut your tile around an obstacle. I have a floor vent in this room, and of course it landed right in the middle of this tile. So I need to cut a big rectangle out to accommodate for that, and the angle grinder does a great job. The cuts aren't nearly as pretty as the wet saw, but luckily this is going to be covered up by the vent cover so nobody will see it. With all the final cuts done, it's time to start pulling these tiles out so we can put them back in permanently. I'm marking all the tiles with a number so I know what order they go back in, because I would hate to get them mixed up. That would be such a pain. Before any tile goes in, we're going to put down what's called uncoupling membrane. This is a great product that creates a barrier between the subfloor and the tile. So if there's any movement in the house or the wooden subfloor, your tile won't break or crack. It's well worth the money if you want your project to last a long time. To adhere both our membrane and our tile to the ground, we're going to be using a thin set mortar. I'm using one that's specifically designed for large format tile, so be sure to research what you need for your specific tile. Whenever you're mixing mortar, you want to get it to a milkshake-like consistency, but be sure it still holds a peak like you can see here. Before laying down any mortar, be sure to clean your floor with a wet sponge. Don't leave any puddles behind, just a nice damp floor will do, and then it's time to start laying down our mortar. Be sure when laying down your mortar that you use the correct trowel. This uncoupling membrane requires a 3/16 V-notch trowel, which is what I'm using here. Once your membrane's in place, use a grout float to firmly push it into the mortar and get out any air bubbles. It's tile time, and that means I've switched over to my 1/2-inch square notch trowel, which is what's recommended for these large format tiles. The tiling process is simple yet repetitive. You're going to lay down your mortar and then get your tile in place. I'm using this awesome leveling system I picked up at Home Depot that keeps all the tiles perfectly flat and level to one another. For the grout joints on my tile, I went with 3/16. I think this is a good medium size that will give me a nice border around each tile and make it look super nice. Now, we just gotta keep tiling. It takes a long time, but it's well worth it in the end. The last tile's in and the hard work is behind us. Now it's time to have fun. To remove these levelers, all you have to do is kick them. It's actually really fun and a good stress reliever after all that hard work. I'll be the first to admit it, I'm a sloppy mortarer, but luckily this tool works great at cleaning all that mortar out from between the tiles and making it look real nice before we start grouting. You want to have a nice clean surface to grout on, so I vacuumed out all of the gaps and cleaned up any excess mortar that got on top of the tile. I got all the trim taped off and now we're ready for grout. I use this Fusion Pro pre-mixed grout, which is great because it dries super fast, but that also makes the grouting process very stressful. I made sure to grout in small areas that would only take me about 5 minutes to do, so I had plenty of time to get it cleaned up before it starts to dry. Grouting has very particular steps and I don't want to lead you astray, so I'll leave a link up in the corner to an awesome video that helped me out with grouting a ton. You may have noticed that I didn't remove any of the baseboard before I started tiling, and this is totally on purpose. I instead opted to use quarter round to fill in the gap because this is what the previous owner did in other parts of the house, and I'm trying to match that style. The flooring is all finished and looking incredible. I love this marble tile. It gives the room that bright, clean look I was going for. It's so nice. The next big step we need to tackle is storage in here. The old wire shelf just didn't cut it. It had no storage and it was really ugly. So I have a plan for some beautiful cabinets that will take this room to the next level. I picked up some prefabricated cabinets from Home Depot, but I didn't love any of their color options, so I'm taking them out back and giving them a paint job to start. I'm going with a nice blue color that I think is going to look really great in this room and give me a little pop of color. The first step when installing our cabinets is finding our studs. You always want to connect your cabinets to a stud so they don't come crashing down on you. It's super important to make sure this first cabinet is square and level because all the rest of our wall cabinets are going to be based off this first one. As in most homes, my walls are a little wonky and it's throwing off the faces of these cabinets. So I use some shims behind the cabinet to push it out and level everything up. Unless you're one of those people with 3 hands, a clamp is super useful when installing these cabinets. It keeps everything square and in place until you can get a few screws driven in. Because I opted for prefabricated cabinets, I ended up with a small 4-inch gap down here at the end. It's perfectly fine. I painted a filler piece to fill in here and it looks great. To cap off these cabinets, I painted some crown molding to match and I really love it. It gives it that finished built-in look, which I love. The final step for these upper cabinets is to get all the doors and pulls installed. It's gonna look so nice when it's done. The fit between this base cabinet and my washer and dryer is very tight, so I opted to remove the baseboard to give me just a little bit more wiggle room when this cabinet is installed. For the countertop in here, I opted to go with some butcher block. It's a great, inexpensive option that looks super nice. To attach it to the cabinet, I didn't use anything fancy, just some L brackets and a couple of screws. Last but not least, this old light has to go because it's definitely not my style, and I opted for a much more sleek, modern looking light that I really love. so happy with how this laundry room came out. It looks beautiful. Who knew all I had to do to take laundry from my least favorite chore to my favorite chore was give this whole room a makeover. Be sure to check out all the links down in the description for the awesome products and tools I used to make this renovation possible. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I loved making this room over, and hopefully you do the same in your laundry room, and be sure to share all those pictures with me over on Instagram at Project Build Stuff. Thanks for joining me, and as always, it's your turn. Go build stuff.